this video, we're going to take an updated look at the Plane tool in 3D Coat's Voxel Workspace. As of this recording, it currently only operates whenever you're in Voxel or volume mode, not surface. So when you come over to the tool panel and you hover over the icon, you get an idea of what it does, not only from the thumbnail but also the tooltip. And so essentially it allows you to carve out large sections of a model, thus making it an ideal tool to use whenever you're modeling or sculpting objects in a scene like rocks, boulders, damaged pillars, damaged armor, and so on. But it's also a very handy cutting tool that you can use for other modeling purposes, as we'll see here shortly. You can right-click anywhere on the object to set the initial position of the cutting plane. Let's go back to the default here. Pick point and forward direction, and this one will always orient the plane toward the camera. Okay, by default this auto move forward will be at 0, and so the forward amount means that's how much farther it's going to cut into the object, or how much farther the plane is going to move away from the camera. So if I right click here, it cuts to a certain degree, but I can't get any further than that unless I pick a point on the object that's further away from the camera. Okay, and I can use maybe a lasso to carve all the way into it. So basically it will cut out from the plane toward the camera completely. Whereas if you're using a brush, as you saw, it may not cut out the entire portion. It may not be strong enough to do that. So I'll undo a few times here. So let's look at this auto move forward. I'll change it to 3. If you keep moving over the area, it typically will trim it all. In 3D Coat you have a number of different ways oftentimes to do the same task, and so this is one of those additional tools for cutting. So you have the cutoff tool, which is especially good for trimming off parts of an object, especially from a side angle. You do have the ability to cut in according to a specified depth, but typically when you use the cutoff tool, depth limit will not be checked, at least not by default anyway. So if you wanted to cut in only a certain amount of depth, you would set the depth limit here, but it's not always so easy to determine just how far it's going to cut in. Okay, so let's try this again. And that may serve you well for most purposes, but with the plane tool you have a visual aid that allows you to see ahead of time just how deep it's going to cut, as well as the angle or the orientation of the cut. Let me undo a few times here. Okay, so yeah, if I use the plane tool, I can change this from, instead of the facing camera, I can choose pick point and direction. This will be an average of the normals of the object, and this will be based on local normals. So if I right click, it's no longer oriented toward the camera, it's oriented along the normals. Okay, so and also have this auto move forward by 3 increments, so it's a little bit hard to see sometimes. So what we can do is come over to the Vox Tree Layer panel, click on the little second icon for ghosting, and now I have a certain measure of transparency. However, if I want to trim with this ghosting enabled, I need to come over to the ghosting volumes drop list and choose pick and act, because by default don't pick, don't act is what is chosen. And so you won't be able to trim, you won't be able to modify it at all. Okay, so choose that last option. See how that works. And so let's do that again here. So we could use any one of these selection types here. Let's use ellipse. And let's change this to 5. Now this move plane forward just works basically one shot at a time. So when you enter a value here, it will not stay static. It only changes once. Whereas in auto move forward, this stays static until you change it. So I'll right click. And you can see how deep it's going to cut. So I'll click here. And it cuts in strictly by that amount. So it's much easier to gauge straight away just how deep a cut is going to be. So you might choose the plane tool instead of the cutoff tool for purposes like this. Okay, so let's try another example here. I have a model here that one of our forum members, Robert Frenzy, allowed us to use for demonstration purposes. So thank you, Robert. And let's say we wanted to trim a part of this model in a more intricate fashion than what we previously saw. We could use the plane tool for this as well. Yeah. You can define the plane position as we did here previously with a right mouse button click, or by assigning 3 or 4 points. So let's try by 4 points. I already have some set here, so you could just choose pick and then place it. Pick and place it. Or you can hover over a point that's already been placed somewhere and reposition it by right clicking and dragging. So I'll do that here. Oops. Accidentally left mouse clicked. So I'll do the same, and you'll notice that the plane actually can introduce some curvature as you place it. And that may be a desired result, maybe not. Okay. And so instead of brushing, okay, that might be a little bit too harsh, a little bit too much. I can actually use one of the selection types, maybe a closed line. Escape. I can sharpen some of these points. We'll click on them and reposition them. Okay, so when I'm happy with the placement, I can hit the Enter key. And escape to drop the spline. And so now I have a completely different cut at a very specific depth. And so now, let me reposition these points. To make another cut even deeper. When I right click and drag, I can see just how deep it's going to cut. Okay, so now let's use the ellipse, click and drag. If I don't like the placement, I can always hold the space bar and move it. Let go of the space bar and let go of my cursor. It made the cut. So then I could use other tools, maybe like extrude in the stamp draw mode. So as you can see, this can be utilized as a very powerful little modeling tool, especially when you consider that it can be used in conjunction with mask overlays to create some even more intricate or elaborate patterns. So keep that in mind, and that will bring this demonstration of the plane tool to a conclusion. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.